first quarterback in Pennsylvania high school history to rush over 1,000 yards and pass for over 1,500 yards in a season. Mr. Doviak also earned the title of High School All-American. Mr. Doviak then graduated from Bucknell University in 1971 with a Bachelor of Science degree and was a 3-year starter as quarterback and defensive back. He received his master's degree from Penn State University in administration in 1973. He was a biology teacher, assistant principal at North Penn High School before becoming principal of Lower Moreland High School in 1987. During his tenure there, Lower Moreland received recognition as a National Blue Ribbon School of Excellence. He retired in 2007 and now works part-time for the Pennsylvania System of Higher Education, mentoring new principals. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Greg Doviak.
Thank you, Mrs. Latour. The hardest thing when you get to be my age is deciding which pair of readers might work as you're standing here in front of a podium. Good evening, Mrs. Latour, Mr. Steller, Mrs. Veach, members of the Board of School Directors, fellow educators, parents, relatives, friends, honored guests, and members of the class of 2011. As a 1967 graduate of Mount Carmel Area High School, it's an honor and a privilege for me to return here and be able to share a few thoughts with you. There are many people who don't believe you can return home to the place where you grew up because so many things have changed and because we as people change. However, I don't really subscribe to that view. John Bon Jovi wrote about in his hit song, "Who Says You Can't Go Back?" One of the verses is, "It doesn't matter where you are, it doesn't matter where you go. If it's 1,000,000 miles away or just a mile up the road. Take it in, take it with you when you go. Who says you can't go home?" You see, even though after high school, many people leave the town they grew up in, either for college, for work, and they might live in a different geographical area, I truly believe the values that are instilled by our parents, the relationships we have established with our friends, and the influence of the communities in which we were raised never leave us. In a way, then, we may leave the safety and security of our parents' home and the community where we were raised, but those influences and those values and those relationships are always there. And I feel that even though I live a distance away from the Mount Carmel area, Mount Carmel is still my home. And I will admit that some of my very favorite times continue to be when I come back and visit my friends and we relive our escapades. Although I was very involved with athletics, I was also very committed to my schoolwork both here at Mount Carmel and at Bucknell, and in my graduate programs at Penn State and Villanova. As I look back to the journey that started here and this evening has brought me back home, I'm reminded of the familiar words of Ralph Waldo Emerson, who said, "Life is a journey, not a destination." As you no doubt already know, life is a journey, and you are about to embark on one of the most significant times of that journey as you leave high school and face new opportunities and challenges. I'd like to share with you two similar but somewhat related stories. We all make many decisions that will have a great impact on our lives and the life of others. About a century ago, an American poet, at close to 40 years of age, had been writing poetry since he was a teenager, but was never able to get anything published in the United States. He made the decision to sell his farm in New England and use the proceeds of that sale to relocate in England in the hope of finding someone who would publish his poetry. Can you imagine, for all intents and purposes, being a failure in your own country and making the decision to sell everything you had, uproot your family, move across the ocean in the hope that you might find someone who would publish your work? What an incredible risk, and what a radical move he made. Well, you might say the rest is history. He became a huge success in England, and by the time he returned to the United States several years later, he had published 2 full-length collections and his reputation was established. By the 1920s, Robert Frost was the most celebrated poet in America and went on to receive 4 Pulitzer Prizes in poetry. The last stanza of one of his most famous poems, The Road Not Taken, is, "I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence, 2 roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference." Everything that he accomplished was because Robert Frost made a decision to take the road less traveled, and took that road without ever losing sight of his goals. And for him, that made all the difference. About a century later, another young man took a similar chance. He had been using computers and writing software as a child in the middle school, and throughout high school and into college, developed a reputation as a computer prodigy. In 2004, at the end of his sophomore year at Harvard, he and some friends moved to Palo Alto, California, in order to work on the further development of his idea before planning to return to Boston for his next school year. He was amazed to find that several major corporations tried to buy his idea, but he refused to sell even though they were offering millions of dollars. He responded to those sales offers by saying, "It's not because of the amount of money. For me and my colleagues, the most important thing is that we create an open information flow for people. Having media corporations owned by conglomerates is just not an attractive idea to me." At that point in his career, he made a decision that would change his life. He chose not to return to Harvard and to continue to work on his project full-time. And again, the rest is history. Since he launched this thing called Facebook, he has been named one of the most influential people of the information age. In 2010, he donated $100 million to improve the Newark public schools, and along with Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, signed a giving pledge in which they promised to donate to charity at least half of their worth over the course of time. At last count, his worth was $7 billion. All that because a young man by the name of Mark Zuckerberg made a decision to take the road less traveled. And he traveled that road without ever losing sight of his goals. And for him and millions of others, that made all the difference. One of my favorite characters is Yogi Berra, a catcher for the New York Yankees from 1946 to 1963. And he was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1972. However, he is perhaps at least as well known for what we call yogiisms, sayings he uses that often leave listeners scratching their heads. His comment regarding our previous topic this evening was, "When you come to a fork in the road, take it." I could also tell you other stories of people who have taken the road less traveled, but I could also tell you stories of people who have taken the road well traveled and have done equally as well. One of the points I want to make, however, is that you have to have your goals and your dreams and your hopes in place before you set out on your path. Our friend Yogi also commented about setting goals when he said, "You've got to be careful if you don't know where you're going, because you won't know if you get there." Another point I want to make is that when you arrive at crossroads in your life, the most important thing is that you travel whatever path you choose with conviction, with integrity, and with character. As each of you travels through life and you discover your own special talents and abilities, I hope you will make your adventure one that is built on respect for others, on sensitivity to your fellow man, and one which reflects your humanity and the values that you learned here at Mount Carmel Area High School. I don't know if there's another Robert Frost in the class of 2011 or another Mark Zuckerberg